Good Monday morning. I hope you had a wonderful Sabbath and are looking forward to a good week, and God has great things in store for you. This is Monday Matters, and every Monday, except for last Monday, I take a minute, just share some things just a thought that hopefully helps you live a happier, healthier, and perhaps holier life. My name is Mike Courtney. I am the former director at Branches. I've surrendered that to my son Josh, and I'm a teaching pastor at Family Worship Center Church. And mainly I just love my grandkids and play with them as much as I possibly can and do Monday Matters. So here we are. A couple of things I want to say very, very quickly, kind of announcement things. On February 24th and 25th, if you're in the area, we are doing a in-house marriage retreat at Branches. It'll be Friday evening. You'll go home, stay in your own bed, and then come back on Saturday. We're calling it 4 tables. There will be 4 tables, and we'll do discussion, some teaching, some testimony. We've invited some wonderful friends to be a part of this. We have room for about 20 couples all together, and we're about 2/3 of the way full. But we'd love to have you come. The cost is $75. That includes supper on Friday night and breakfast and lunch on Saturday. You can register by just emailing me at mcourtney@branches.org. mcourtney@branches.org. February 24th and 25th, couples retreat. Hope you'll be a part of that. And then we're planning a men's retreat at Henry Horton State Park, March the 17th and 18th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. The cost of that is somewhere between $75 and $150, depending on if you stay in the cabin or if you want to stay in the lodge. We have both of those rooms available. Great time, great fellowship, good teaching, good devotional time. Let me know. Again, you can email me, just say men's retreat, March 17th through the 19th. Did I say those two things right? February 24th, 25th, and then March 17th, 18th, 19th. So couples retreat, marriage retreat. Well, I missed last week. I was in Marietta, Georgia with my wonderful friend, Andy Rutherford. He is a great pastor in the Church of the Nazarene. Andy was in my youth group when I was a youth leader 45 years ago, and God has blessed him. He's done so well. I'm so proud of the work that he's done, and he is doing a super job there. He invited me to come to Marietta and be a part of their worship experience for the weekend. Met some really neat friends there, and just thankful for that time. But in the traveling and all that, I didn't do a Monday Matters last week, so forgive me. Here we are again. And then I posted some things this weekend about doing a personal spiritual retreat out at my little cabin in the woods that I call Mr. Tumbles, and many of you responded to that. And a lot of people ask about the name. So I thought today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to tell you the story of Mr. Tumbles, and hopefully we'll make an application out of that'll help you live a happier, healthier, and maybe holier life. So have a little piece of property in the woods. My sister was very gracious and gave me 5 acres of land on a farm that I'd kind of grown up on. My cousins, Jerry and Ann Huff, owned it, and from college days, I grew up stomping those hills and hunting, and Shonda bought part of that and gave me for my birthday one year 5 acres of land there. And so it sat for a long, long time. And I finally had always wanted a little cabin there. Finally bought a little garden shed, basically a 12 by 20 shed, and it sat on the corner of the property for a long, long time. Finally, the time came that Doris and I decided we were going to, I decided, I'm going to go out and put that in place. So I went out, took a chainsaw, cleared out a spot, began working and preparing the spot where I wanted it. I found, it's just outside of Ashton City, so I found a wrecker service in town that said we move small buildings. So I went in, talked to the guy, big old fat guy smoking a cigarette. I said, man, I was smoking a big cigar. I said, man, I got this cabin. It's 12 by 20. I showed him pictures. He said, buddy, we do that all the time. That is not a problem. Do it all the time. I said, okay. So we made arrangements, going to do it. went back, worked on it a couple more days. As I would do some things, I would go back and talk to him. Now, here's what I want to do, and here's how. He said, buddy, we do this all the time. Don't worry about it. It's okay. So finally the day came. Doris and I came down the hill. We were staying in my sister's cabin, which is like the Taj Mahal compared to my little cabin. But we were staying there. We came down and we're waiting. And here comes the big truck. It's a big roll-off truck, the kind that tilts down. It's a big roll-off truck. Pulled up. Big old fat guy with a cigar is nowhere to be found. Instead, there's some young high school kid. He jumps out of the truck, looks at this building and said, man, we've never done anything like this before. I said, oh, great. So he said, well, we can do it. It's okay. So he backs up, lowers the ramp, hooks a cable to that cabin, and to my amazement, drug that cabin right up on that truck and lowered it down, and it's setting right on the truck. It's unbelievable. Now, he only had to go about 50 yards, but it's 50 yards across this rough pasture, and the cabin is heavier than the truck. So every time he'd hit the least little bump, one of the wheels of that truck would come up off the ground. I didn't even know he had his girlfriend in there with him, but about the second bump, the door came open. She came flying out like bees out of a beehive and stood out. She and Doris stood on the side of the road and prayed and smoked cigarettes. Doris prayed and she smoked cigarettes. And the guy backed it up, set it back. Now, the back of the cabin is about 10 feet off the ground. The front of the cabin is about 10 inches off the ground because of the slope. And I had built these concrete pilasters for it to set right down on. Guy backed up, set it down on that. Unbelievable. It's perfect. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm jumping up and down dancing. This is great. He started to pull out. And because the weight of the cabin had pushed it down, the back of the truck wouldn't come over the little rise of the hill. He couldn't get the truck out. He said, no problem. He said, I'll just lift it up a little bit and then I'll pull out and I'll set it back down. He said, lift up a little bit. And when he did, the cabin slid off of the truck and off of the pilasters and went down one corner, went down in the ground. And the other corner was about 15 feet up in the air. One of the pilasters I'd built went through the floor of the cabin. I thought, oh man, I mean, I said, it's going to be a bonfire. I'm just going to have to burn the whole thing. It's just a piece of junk. And he drove off and left me there in my dismay with that cabin, that pile of trash. I called my friend Robert, who is just a dear friend. And I said, Robert, here's what happened. He said, hey, no problem. Robert grew up on a farm. He just does farm stuff. He said, Joan and I will come out tomorrow and we'll get it. So they came out and Robert brought a little 8-inch bottle jack. Just one little jack. That's all he brought. But we began to go around that cabin and we would lift it up 8 inches at a time and then we'd put a concrete block under it. And then we'd go to another corner and we'd lift it up 8 inches and put a concrete block. And then we'd go and we went all day long just lifting it up 8 inches at a time and putting a block under it until we got it up just a little bit higher than the pilasters I had built. And then we could push it over and then lower it, that little jack, lower it back down right. Absolutely perfect. It's just amazing. We fixed the floor. It's an incredible little cabin. If I think about it, I'll try to find a way to post a picture of it. But it's just an amazing, amazing little cabin. About a week later, I went back and Robert had bought me a little sign made out of cedar. You know how they engrave things in these little cedar signs. He bought me a sign. And it said Mr. Tumbles because it tumbled down in the hole and we had redeemed it and brought it back up. So since then, that was probably 15 years ago, I have called this cabin Mr. Tumbles. That my kids call it Mr. Tumbles. My grandkids call it Mr. Tumbles. Everybody that knows me and knows anything about the cabin knows it's Mr. Tumbles. So I spent the weekend in Mr. Tumbles. It's a wonderful place for just that, to get away as a prayer retreat, to read. It's full of books. It's the electricity is by battery, car battery, but I've got lights hooked up. It works on that. Water is the 5-gallon thing that I take in, and I can use that to flush a toilet or to wash with or take a shower if I'm willing to take a kind of a chilly shower. It's got everything that you need, 2 bunks, a wonderful little area. Mr. Tumbles. I just absolutely love it, and as much time as I possibly can, I spend out there. The counselors, when I was at Branches, used to say, we're afraid that if something would happen to Doris, that you would move out to Mr. Tumbles and just become a hermit out there. And I said, I would drive there from a cemetery. Are you kidding? Of course I would do that. I love Mr. Tumbles. Well, that's the story of Mr. Tumbles. That's how it got its name, and that's what it is. But let me tell you 3 applications that come to me out of that little story. The first one is this. I don't care how deep a hole you fall in, God always has a plan to get you back out. Now, you might in your life have run into some times where you just felt like you had one corner on the ground and one corner way up in the air, and there was a hole punched in your floor, and you were just ready for the bonfire. That life had absolutely thrown you such a curve that it was just a waste, and there's no way out of this mess. I promise you that God is able to do exceeding abundantly more than you can ask or imagine, and He will deliver you from this mess. God will get you out of any hole. Zephaniah 3:17, I know the plan. No, that's not I know the plans. The Lord is mighty. He will deliver you. He delights in you and rejoices over you with singing. I don't care how deep a hole you have fallen in, God always has a plan to get you out of that. Here's observation number 2. Most of the time, He gets us out just one block at a time. Now, there are some times where great miracles happen and just amazing turnaround and unbelievable change. But most of the time, it's just one step at a time, just a few inches at a time, just beginning to make this right decision and then this right decision. Most of the time, He rebuilds us just one block at a time. And God is looking to rebuild you. If you'll just begin doing the small things, praising Him, praying, spending time in the Word, being faithful in church, doing those small things, and they begin to mount up, and one day you look back and say, man, I'm up, I'm level, I'm where I'm supposed to be. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen usually in some miraculous fashion. It just happens one tiny step at a time, and He gets you back to where you need to go. There's no hole so deep that God can't get you out of. Most of the time He gets you out of it just one block at a time. And here's the third observation, and that is this. Most of the time when that happens, there's a new name involved. Now, you might not be called Mr. Tumbles. A few years later, when John Michael came along, John Michael was about 3, and I built a little tree house for him in our backyard. And I said, John Michael, I told him the story of Mr. Tumbles, and you know how Poppy C's cabin is called Mr. Tumbles. Let's name your tree house. What do you want to name it? John Michael thought for a minute, and he said, Fred. So we always call the treehouse Fred. We don't know why, but that's Fred. That most of the time when God makes this kind of change in your life, there's a new name involved. One of the most interesting passages for me, I have no idea what it means, but in the Revelation there is this promise that there's a stone, and on it is written a name for us that no one but God knows. He knows your story. He knows the hole he got you out of. He knows the blocks He had to put, and He knows your name. The verse that Doris and I have lived by over the last 20 years, we are new creatures in Christ Jesus. Old things are passed away. All things are become new. We used to sing that old hymn, there's a new name written down in glory, and it's mine. Oh, yes, it's mine. So I don't know where you are or what you're doing or what's taking place, but I will tell you this. You're not in such a deep hole that God can't get you out. Now, it might just happen one step at a time, but when He does, He has got a new name for you, and it's going to be marvelous. It might even be Mr. Tumbles. I don't know. Well, thanks for listening to this. Thanks for being a part of Monday Matters. If you like this, would you click, like, subscribe, share, all those things that you're supposed to do. You can add a new name to it if you want to. Every day on Instagram and Facebook, I post just kind of a one-sentence inspirational thought that ties into this. And then on Fridays, I try to write a blog at branchesblog.com. You can go there. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of my life. Consider the men's retreat or the marriage retreat. And more than anything else, remember that God loves you. And I am grateful that you're in my life today. God bless you. Have a good week.